This is an interview with Donald E. Crass on March 6th, 2012. The interviewer is Donna Crass Sefton. May I have your full name, please?
Donald Irvin Crass.
And when were you born?
June 13th, 1919.
And where were you born?
Newburgh, Wisconsin.
And what were your parents' names?
Joseph and Edna Gurner Crass.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
6 girls and 11 boys.
And when were you inducted into the Army?
July 21st, 1941.
And where was that?
At Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And how did you feel about that? What were you doing before, and how did you feel when you were called?
Well, I just got through cheap labor, and then I got a job in the foundry in Grafton, and we were making pretty good money. And then the president called and he wanted me to serve in the service, so I had to report.
And then you were shipped out to where from there?
Camp Grant, Illinois.
And you awaited assignment, and what happened with that?
Well, my cousin and another guy, Artie Pfeiffer, was inducted at the same time, and they came around to call on different ones that were going to basic training, and they called my cousin Harold, and the next day they came around and they were looking for Harold, and we told him that he's gone. He went to Fort Belvoir, to the engineers. So they shipped me out to Fort Eustis, Virginia, to the Coast Artillery.
And then after that, there was the December 7th, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. And what happened then?
I was in a movie theater down in Georgia, Camp Stewart, and they announced over the loudspeaker that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, and all you guys get back to your unit. You're on full alert. So we went back to our unit, and they put us into what do they call it? A
task force or
anyway, we were in a group, and we traveled from Camp Stewart to New York, and went through the Holland Tunnel and through on the other side of the, oh God, at least we were in the northern part of New York, and there we set up our guns at Mitchell Field, and we were there for probably a month, a week, and then they moved us to get onto another convoy. That's what I was trying to say before. Convoy to rail convoy to Camp Shelby, Mississippi. So that took place, and we were in Camp Shelby for about a week till all our equipment was loaded on the ship, and then we boarded our transport and went from New Orleans to Aruba, which was a few days later, or I don't remember exactly how long.
So you went to Aruba, and how did you feel about going there versus going someplace else?
You mean
to Aruba?
Instead of some other place.
Right.
Well, I felt better than the going right up in front of cannon fodder. So I thought it was okay, but still, we were in a very dangerous place with that oil, that refinery there, and they were supplying all the high octane gas for the Rummel, for over fighting the British 8th Army, fighting Rommel over there. So they'd have blown that up, why we would have been sky high.
And so you were with the, what was the unit called that you went with? What was your job?
My job? Well, I was a buck private, and I didn't have any bit of authority. All the rest of the guys were all from a former unit, and they all had ratings, and I was a buck private. And I don't think that captain really liked me, but he gave me all the details, and I was supposed to be. They were supposed to have a rated man on be gunnery. Well, I was in charge of the gun, and I was the first one to report the incident when the submarine came. Because I seen it, I could see it as well as anybody, because it was down in a kind of a slope, and we were right on the water's edge. There was no mistaking that I couldn't see that, and I seen that submarine come in with a big light, and I punched my buddy Herb Laurel from Shawano, and I says, "It looks just like a car going down the highway," because it was so level, and these boats, patrol boats that they had, were up and down like a wave, because they were a little small boat. So it wasn't very long after I told them, whoops, there goes up a ship, torpedo, and I quick got on the field telephone and called the captain, told him, I says, they just sunk, or they just torpedoed a ship out in the open harbor. And as I was talking, I said, whoops, there goes another one. So there was two boats, and the water was on fire all over, and I could hear the guys on that ship hollering. Well, they were getting burned to death. And I never heard a report on what the captain did. He must have never turned it over to the authorities, because it took him a half an hour, and the Air Force it was only down maybe about a couple miles from our position, and they could have been there within just a matter of minutes to get that submarine while it was on top of the water. But half an hour it took them to get there, and that was outrageous.
Well, what happened with the German submarine then?
Oh, then after they sunk the ships, they were going to blast the island with their big gun. And they forgot to take the plug out of the barrel, and the gun blew up. This I found out later. I seen a flash, but I didn't know what it was from. So the American Legion put out a story on it from the German commander that was on that submarine, and I got the full details there. And let's see. And I can't see to this day why that captain didn't report that. And after the big guns blew up, they started shooting 40mm shells in that, and there was a smokestack there, probably about 200 feet high, for that pit still where they refined that crude, and it come out like coal because all the oil and stuff was taken out of it, and it was pumped on the other end of the island. And they kept firing that 40mm Boffer, and I could see every third shell was a tracer, and I could see them going on both sides of the chimney there. I was waiting for it to hit, but none of them hit that. They hit one tank up on the hill, but all it did was dent it. See, now if that big gun would have been there, it would have really done some damage. Most of us would have never got off that. They'd have burned us right up, well, everything going downhill would have burned us up.
So how did you feel about that whole incident?
Well, I tell you, I wasn't looking for any credit on anything. That was my big problem. And I wasn't rated to make a big splash because buck private, oh, they don't even listen to a buck private. You're a nobody. So, and I didn't have any ratings until I got on the power unit that operated the gun, gas-operated motor. So then I got a PFC rating there. And we went on a lot of night problems. We'd go way on the other end of town and walk back and see if we could sneak into the refinery. And that's where we got our combat infantryman's badge. We were one of the first units to get that infantry badge because we done these night problems.
Well, and in the refinery itself, weren't you involved in...
There was a fence around there. You couldn't get in there. Just because I wore a uniform, an American uniform, I could get any place in that island on that refinery. And I helped them lay all the communication. And I wasn't qualified for that. I helped them play all their communications and that. And that's why we had communication to our gun, and they had written up that when our guns were still on the ship, not ours. Ours was on the island.
Well then, after Aruba, where did you go from Aruba, and why did you leave Aruba?
Well, I think they needed, figuring for that invasion, they needed men, and all of us that weren't really, well, I think they asked a lot of them if they wanted to stay and be